That toothpaste in your bathroom, the vet clinic you took your dog to last month, the mattress you're sleeping on tonight, the funeral home that handled your grandfather's service. There's a good chance none of them are owned by who you think they are. They're owned by a handful of private equity firms you've probably never even heard the names of. And once you see how deep this actually goes, you will never look at a store shelf, a strip mall, or even a hospital the same way again. Private equity used to be this quiet, behind-the-scenes corner of finance. Firms would buy struggling companies, restructure them, and sell them a few years later for a profit. Boring. Technical. The kind of thing only Wall Street guys in suits talked about at dinner parties. But over the last 15 to 20 years, something changed. These firms stopped just buying broken companies. They started buying everything. Dental clinics, veterinary chains, apartment complexes, funeral homes, wedding venues, daycare centers, even the small company that makes your favorite hot sauce. Quietly, piece by piece, brand by brand, industry by industry. And here's the part that should genuinely surprise you. Most of us have zero idea it's happening because the branding never changes. The logo stays exactly the same. The storefront looks identical. The website still has the same friendly, family-owned since 1985 language on the About page. But who's actually calling the shots behind that logo? Completely, entirely different. So let's break down the actual playbook, because it repeats almost identically across every industry this happens to. Step 1 is the roll-up. A private equity firm identifies an industry that's fragmented, meaning it's made up of hundreds or thousands of small, independently owned businesses instead of a few big chains. Local vet clinics are a perfect example. Dental offices too. So is landscaping, HVAC repair, even orthodontics. The firm starts buying these small businesses up, one after another, sometimes dozens in a single year. And critically, they almost always keep the original name on the door. Your local vet clinic still says Dr. Smith's Animal Hospital. Nothing on the sign tells you that Dr. Smith sold the business 3 years ago and now works for a corporate parent company, managing 400 other clinics just like it. Step 2 is squeezing efficiency. Once a firm owns enough locations in one industry, they start centralizing everything behind the scenes. Purchasing, supplies, scheduling software, HR, insurance negotiations. On paper, this sounds smart, even good. Economies of scale, right? And sometimes it genuinely does lower costs, but it also means decisions that used to be made by the person standing in front of you are now made by a regional manager. Step 3 is where customers start actually feeling it, even when they can't quite explain why. Prices creep upward. A visit that used to cost you $80 is suddenly $120. Upselling becomes more common. Additional tests, additional services, additional products, because the business now has revenue targets set by investors, not just a local owner trying to keep loyal customers happy. Step 4 is the exit. After typically 3 to 7 years, the private equity firm sells the entire bundled-up collection of businesses, sometimes to another bigger private equity firm, sometimes to a public company, sometimes through an IPO, and the cycle often starts again under new ownership, with the same invisible playbook. Real-world examples. Let's make this concrete, because it's easy to talk about this in the abstract, and hard to actually picture it. Veterinary care is one of the most well-documented examples. A wave of private equity acquisitions swept through the pet care industry over the last decade. Independent vet clinics that used to be run by a single vet who knew your dog by name got quietly absorbed into large corporate networks. Multiple studies and reports have pointed to rising costs in veterinary care tracking closely with this consolidation. Pet owners paying noticeably more for routine visits than they were a decade ago, even adjusting for inflation. So-called dental support organizations, DSOs, have been buying up independent practices at a rapid pace. The dentist you see might still be the same friendly person, but the business behind them, the equipment purchasing, the insurance billing, the target number of patients seen per day, all of that now flows through a private equity-backed parent company optimizing for growth. Housing is another huge one, and this one affects people even if they've never noticed a brand name change. Private equity and large, institutional investors have been buying up single-family homes and entire apartment complexes in bulk, particularly after the housing downturns of the past couple decades gave them the opportunity to buy at scale. When a firm owns thousands of rental units across a city, they can coordinate rent increases in ways an individual landlord never could. And in several markets, this kind of institutional buying has been directly linked to faster than normal rent growth. Even something as personal as funeral homes hasn't been spared. A large portion of what look like small, family-run funeral homes across the country are now owned by just a couple of major corporate funeral service companies, many of which have private equity ownership somewhere in their history. The name on the building might say Johnson Family Funeral Home, established 1962, but the pricing, the service packages, the upsells during one of the most emotionally vulnerable moments of someone's life are often set by a corporate parent. And in consumer products, it goes even further than you'd expect. A surprising number of the artisanal, small batch, or family recipe branded food and beverage products on grocery store shelves have been quietly bought out, with the original founders staying on briefly as a friendly face, while the actual ownership and profit structure shifted entirely to an investment firm. Why this matters? 5 to 6:30. Here's the important nuance. Because this isn't really a conspiracy theory. It's publicly available information, sitting in financial filings and industry reports that almost nobody outside of finance ever reads. And private equity ownership isn't automatically a disaster either. Sometimes a struggling small business genuinely benefits from access to more capital, better systems, and professional management. That part is real too. But the pattern worth understanding is this: an industry that used to have hundreds or thousands of independent owners, each one competing on service, trust, and reputation to keep loyal local customers, quietly becomes controlled by a small handful of financial firms whose primary obligation isn't to you, the customer, it's to their investors. Their internal metric of success isn't, did this family love how we handled their dog's surgery? It's, did this location hit its revenue target this quarter? That shift in incentive, multiplied across an entire industry, is what slowly changes the experience for millions of people without any of them ever being told ownership changed at all. How to spot it? 6:30 to 8. So how do you actually notice this in your own life? There are a few patterns worth watching for. If a small business you've used for years suddenly gets a slicker, more corporate-feeling website, that's often a signal. If prices jump noticeably without a clear reason, or if you start noticing more upselling than before, that's another one. If staff you recognized for years suddenly disappear and get replaced frequently, that can indicate a change in how the business treats its workforce post-acquisition. And if you're curious about a specific business, a quick search of the business name plus the word acquired or private equity often turns up news coverage or industry reports confirming a change in ownership, even when the storefront looks untouched. None of this means you need to boycott every private equity-owned business. At this point, avoiding them entirely across your daily life would be almost impossible given how widespread this has become. But understanding why an experience has changed can be genuinely useful. It helps you stop blaming a random employee for corporate-level decisions, and it helps you make more informed choices about where you actually want to spend your money when you do have a choice. Close. CTA 8 8 30. So the next time you walk into a business that feels a little different than it used to, slower service, unexpected upcharges, unfamiliar staff, a strangely polished new website, there's a real chance the answer isn't bad luck or a bad day. It's ownership. And once you know what to actually look for, you start noticing it absolutely everywhere. In your neighborhood, in your city, probably in your own daily routine. If this opened your eyes even a little bit, hit subscribe. We break down stuff hiding in plain sight like this every single week. And drop a comment below. What's a brand or local business you use that you just found out isn't independently owned anymore? I'd genuinely like to know what you find.